Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode number 1. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. Where did Doug go? I am actually not sick. I'm not sick. I have been working an awful lot. I have been teaching a lot. I've been speaking a lot. And as a result, my voice is completely toast. And I am simultaneously committed to getting this podcast out on time. So you're going to have to deal with a little bit of raspiness and a little bit of hoarse sounding voice. Actually, my daughter asked me if I was going to be the big bad wolf for Halloween, which is tonight, because I sort of sound like him. But this episode is so important. It's titled Intelligence. You know, Albert Einstein said that if you're going to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing that it's stupid. And I have some real personal experience with that. You may have some personal experience with that as well. I can't think of anyone who has a better experience with that than my grandfather. My grandfather was born in Roxborough, North Carolina, on a tobacco farm. His parents were tenant farmers, and they had nothing. They were completely broke. They were poor. And so as my grandfather grew up, he sort of realized that he had two options in life. One option was to stay at the farm and probably starve. The other option is to move away and still probably starve. And he chose option number 2. So he moved down to the big city of Raleigh, North Carolina, that had all of the various opportunities and where the American dream was strong. Coming from his background, being born right in the guts of the Depression in the 30s, really gave him sort of low expectations. He found himself working at a tire sales and service company in the back room doing finance. And he actually found that he was right. He was starving, and the problem was he was also causing his wife and his 2 young daughters to suffer as well. So he decided that he needed some extra income. Now, as Americans, what do we do when we need a little extra income? Well, we have a yard sale. The problem was he was missing the one fundamental, most important thing that you need if you're going to have a yard sale, which was stuff. And so he got this bright idea one day. He went and got yesterday's paper, because today's paper costs money. Yesterday's paper's free. He went and got yesterday's paper, opened the classified. Now, this is back before technology and Google and iPhones or any sort of digital communication, and all they had was a newspaper. Can you imagine that people live like that? You know, that's a different thing. I actually remember those times a little bit. But he would open up the classified section, and he'd look at everyone who was having a yard sale that weekend, and he started dialing numbers, and he would call them, and he'd say the same thing to all of them. He would say, "Hi, my name is Lawrence, and I see that you're having a yard sale this weekend. If you'd like, I would be happy to come by your house on Sunday afternoon after your yard sale's over and dispose of any of the junk that you're not able to sell. I'd be happy to do that at no charge." And a lot of people actually said yes. And that's how he got his first stuff for his first yard sale. He did that over and over and over and over and over and over again until 5 years later, he had made enough money and had become successful enough to buy a piece of land in South Raleigh, to build a warehouse, and to stock it full of furniture. Cash. Now, that's an amazing story. But that only gets us to like the 70s. Through the 80s and 90s, he went on to build 4 other locations, sell most of those locations off to family members because he realized that real estate had a better profit margin than retail. Now, he didn't tell us that when he was selling it to us, but he realized that that real estate was a better investment for him, and he was more well suited for that. And so he went on to buy houses, and then he went on to build some corporate spaces and some commercial properties, and became this incredibly successful man. And after college, I actually went home. I came to Raleigh to take over that flagship store that he built in the 70s. And I can remember there was one day he was sitting in one of the recliners, which is where he commonly sat, right in the breezeway of the store, because we didn't have air conditioning, because his mantra was no frills, just deals. He didn't have air, he didn't have heat, he just had good prices. And that's just kind of how he rolled. And the amazing thing is I was sitting there thinking about all the success that he had and where he came from. And I'm just out of college and really wanted to do well myself, wanted to be successful, wanted to make money, and wanted to think the way that he thought, because the way that he thought caused him to have the idea that he had, which was just to call people in the classified section and ask if he could have their junk as a way to get started. And so I asked him, I said, "Granddaddy, I would love to be as successful as you one day. What is it? What's the thing that caused you to become this successful?" And I'll never forget it. He had a hat on, his furniture store hat, the one that he had made for our company. And it was kind of over his eyes a little bit. And he pulled it up. He leaned back. He took a sort of a deep breath. He grinned and kind of laughed a little bit. He chuckled. And he said, "I wasn't smart enough to know that I couldn't." That was his advice. That's what he told me. I wasn't smart enough to know that I couldn't. That is how he believed that he became a multimillionaire. That's how he developed this business and built these buildings and acquired all of this financial success, was because he wasn't smart enough to know that he couldn't. Are you hearing this? Is that not the most absurd thing you've ever heard come from a man who has done what he did, who had the business acumen, in my opinion, that he had, who had the intelligence that I believe that he had? It's crazy, right? Or is it? Or is there some truth that sometimes the thing that stands the most in the way of our success is us overthinking what might happen? So the question is what are you overthinking? What are you talking yourself out of trying? What action are you talking yourself out of taking? You know, it's like my friend and co-host in the Off the Top podcast, which I'll link below, Mark Kinsley says, is that action reveals answers. So many times that thinking does not reveal our answers. Action is the only thing, and then iteration, and then another iteration, and you never know when that idea that you have and that action you took. Because look, my grandfather could have had a lot of ideas about how to start a business or how to get stuff for a yard sale, but the thing that worked was the thing he did. And that wasn't the first thing, that's just the one that worked. So that's the only one that I know about. And you know, when I think about action revealing answers, I think a lot about like the picture of like a GPS. You know what I mean? Like all of us have a thing that we want to accomplish. Like we have a vision or a legacy or something that's like far away that we ultimately would want to accomplish. And what so many people do is they wait for all the lights to turn green before they press the gas at all. They never take action. Instead of getting to the first light that might be red and waiting for that one to turn green and then going to the next one and then the next one. And what I've learned, like when I type in a destination in a GPS, I don't look at every turn. Never do I look at every turn. I may look at the like the traffic and see what's the red versus the green, and then pick a destination that way. But even when I do that, I don't look at every turn. I only pay attention to the next turn. You don't need to know every turn. All you need to know is what's the next one. So for whatever it is for you, and it may be something small, it may be something big, but when you think about the idea of intelligence, the question I have for you is, are you overthinking your success? And are you willing to not be smart enough to know that you can't and to take action? And if you take action, you'll get a result. And it may be a result that you have to do a U-turn and you have to come back. But at least you're moving, and nothing's ever accomplished without movement. So as much as I hope you enjoyed this quick episode number 1, and thank you for suffering through the voice drama. I will try to heal this thing up by at least episode 5. So stick with me. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe on iTunes, on Google Play, on Spreaker, soon to be on iHeartRadio, or subscribe to the email newsletter. I'd love to get a review to hear what your thoughts are. You can reach out to me at doug@dougstewart919.com or any of the various social places. I hope this was entertaining for you today, and I hope it inspired you, and I hope that you're more willing now to take action than you were 12 minutes ago. But most importantly, I hope that you take this in the world and you go do something with it. We'll see you next week, my friends.